Welcome, friends, to the grim, dark bowels of my basement. A bit like Bat Josh, I guess. I got 3 Batman-related books, Gotham books, you might say, this week. And they were decidedly mixed bag. Definitely some things that weren't as strong as I expected. I got Batman, which I don't normally pick up. I normally pick up I'm waiting on trades. I used to pick up Batman before Zero Year, and then I decided that I preferred Scott Snyder as in trade, so I decided just to wait, which has been hard to do with a series that I guess has taken about 13 months to finish. So I'm expecting any day now to get the whole chunk of it in trades. But this is a standalone, done-in-one issue, so I thought I'd pick it up, and also has the special guest artist of an artist who I'm very interested in right now, Matteo Scalera. He's working on one of the hottest image books, Black Science. So I was really curious to see what he would do on Batman. Before Black Science, I was seeing him on the Hulk, of all places, and he actually did a really good job on the Hulk, although he was kind of an odd match for the Hulk. And why wasn't I paying attention? Because I pulled this right off the shelf and didn't notice it was the selfie cover, and I hate the selfie covers. They're just so focused on trying to decide whether to pick up Batman or not. Although it totally makes sense to pick up this one and done issue. And it is a complete one and done issue. I have to hand it to them for that. It is co-written by Scott Snyder and Jerry Dugan, or the story was come up by Scott Snyder and Jerry Dugan, and the script was written by Jerry Dugan. And Jerry Dugan is currently most well known for currently writing Deadpool over at Marvel. And he will be writing Arkham Manor, when Wayne Manor becomes Arkham Asylum. Don't forget, this is the video where I spoil things, so I get a smaller audience for these Bat videos, maybe because less people are interested in following the current Batmans, or maybe less people want to be spoiled. But I will talk about beginnings, middles, and ends of these comic books, however much I need to, or feel like it. And it's about being part of the conversation about Batman right now, I think stimulated by Batman Eternal, as I've said before. So, I'm bummed I did not get the Matteo Scalera cover, let's put it that way. It's pissed at myself. Only myself to blame, I think. So yeah, it was a one and done issue. It was satisfying on a certain level. It took kind of a basic Batman story and put a slight twist on it. The basic twist it was called The Meek, and the basic twist was that the serial killer here did not want to be noticed, killed people who no one would miss, and thought he was going under the radar. And that was juxtaposed against the usual Batman villain who is out for notoriety and wants to be noticed and wears a crazy costume and does flamboyant crimes so everyone will have heard of him or her. So that was a nice twist, and it was fun to see Batman just sort of going through the neighborhood and trying to find clues, and but it felt like a Batman story that could have been at any time. I could imagine this drawn by Gene Colan and written by Doug Moench, or however you say his name, back in the 80s. Or in the 70s, a story kind of like this by Denny O'Neil. Or, well, probably not in the 60s. But maybe back in the 40s. It felt kind of timeless, and I liked that aspect of it. And I've already seen, yeah, so I should finish that thought. So there's a but to all that, which is it was a decent story without, it was like a one-note story. It had that one cool idea that Batman's hunting this serial killer of the meek, who's hard to track down and who thinks that someone like Batman would never try to track him down. And that was it. There wasn't some other layer. There wasn't a little more it gave us about Batman or about Gotham or anything like that. It was kind of like a one-note detective/horror story because it's a serial killer. So of course that's quite horrific. And this is a serial killer who's killed a lot of people. And there's some very powerful, if you will, scenes of how badly he treats the bodies, as he is also a grave digger in Potter's Field, in the poverty cemetery. So I ended it. I think it's because of modern expectations. We really do live in an era where a lot of writers really push themselves and go the extra mile and put extra things in, extra layers. And you particularly expect that from Batman, which has become the what's the word? The flagship comic of DC Comics. So that it was such a simple one and done. I sort of feel like I unfairly was dissatisfied. I should have been happy with just that, but I wasn't. I wanted something more in the story. But I definitely wanted the story to be done in this issue, and I was glad of that. And then, part of my excitement of this was for the Matteo Scalera art, and I had in mind Black Science. And Ghost Critic has already said this in his video, so he and I had a similar experience. The first time I read this, I was disappointed in the art because I had this in mind. Stuff like this. Not that I expect Batman to be like that, but just a very more vivid, detailed, in-your-face kind of art that's just a truly wild ride, which is what I'm sort of expecting from Matteo Scalera. But one, it was different material, and two, a different colorist. And it kind of starts to show you how much the colorist in Black Science is doing, perhaps. Or maybe Matteo Scalera is doing a lot more in Black Science than he was in Batman. But so, it's quite a difference in intensity of detail and color. I think it's mostly the colorist. So this really shows us how much Dean White, the colorist of Black Science, adds. If you're not getting Black Science, the first trade recently came out, $10 without a discount, so if you get a discount, even cheaper. If you have any interest, just grab it. In my mind, it's one of the best indie books out there. It's one of the best books out there, period. And so I was all excited to see this art in Batman. And we didn't really get that. But looking back through it, I realized it really was very good art. It just didn't have that density that I was expecting from Matteo Scalera. And when he drew for the Hulk, it was a bit denser. I'll have to go back and look at who the colorist was. But really, it's quite brilliantly drawn. Scalera's a really good storyteller. Incredible use of blacks and shadows, great layouts. You really get some intensity and emotion out of these serial killer kind of scenes. So it took me a second look to realize, yes, this was actually really good art. And I certainly if we had this as regular Batman, I think I could grow to love it. He's a little bit quirky and loose and scratchy, but you grow to love his quirks and his scratchiness for and the greatness of his layouts. I would say in Black Science and in some other things of his, he has done a lot more two-page layouts, and perhaps this script didn't call for it so much, or he just didn't feel like it fit that kind of pacing, so we get more one-page layouts. And the colorist does a great job, just not at the level. And the colorist is someone named Lee Lowridge, I think, just limiting the palettes on each page, and does a great job at striking the mood and giving the pages a different palette, so to speak, all within kind of that brownish, orangish, gray, blue, dark purple kind of feel that might go with Gotham. It's just not as rich, not nearly as rich as what Dean White does in Black Science, and there they list him as the painter, I believe, or digital painter or color painter. Another interesting thing is on this double-page spread is where they tie this into Batman Eternal. I thought I had read that this issue would move Batman up to the end of Batman Eternal. But it seems, in fact, set perhaps like a few weeks or a few months from now in Batman Eternal. So not the full end of the year of Batman Eternal, but ahead of where we are at the moment. So we get this spread here, and it's just this one page basically connecting this to some part of the Batman Eternal continuity, but not the current issue, because Catwoman is already the leading criminal in Gotham. That's the biggest clue. Commissioner Gordon's still in jail, so we know that sort of tells us that he's going to still be in jail several issues from now. The police are still kind of against Batman, although I thought that sort of surprised me, because I thought that the police being against Batman will have gone away as the whole Falcone thing was wrapped up, and he was the one who was pulling the strings. So yeah, that's kind of loosey-goosey here, and I think it might have been better if they hadn't devoted these 2 pages to placing it in time. I think it's better to just do something that stands alone unless there's a good reason for hooking it into time. I do wonder if there's something about this issue that's going to tie into their plans for Wayne Manor becoming Arkham Asylum, for Arkham Manor. And since it's Jerry Duggan who's going to write that, and here he is kind of here, and it feels like they've been using Batman Eternal to sort of introduce threads that they're going to spin out into their own story, like the Spectre's getting his own Gotham book, or the Human, who is also the Spectre's, getting his own Gotham book. And anyhow, so and it looks like maybe they're going to spin out a Red Robin Bluebird kind of book too, or it certainly looks like it could. So overall, to be honest, I feel like I wouldn't have missed anything if I hadn't read this. It was a mild pleasure. If it were $2.99, it would have been easier to swallow. And so while I'm on the disappointments, I'll hit Batgirl. This is a bigger disappointment for me just because of what it represents. It's the end of Gail Simone's run. I wanted her to really go out with a bang, and I didn't feel she did. She tried to go out with a bang. It was a big fight issue where Batgirl calls in all the chips and all her allies to come in and help her fight Nightfall, because Nightfall's making her big move to take over the city. And it just falls flat. It feels full of unearned moments. And 2 issues ago, I guess that would have been issue 32, I thought this looked like a really promising storyline, and then the last issue didn't accomplish very much and mostly focused on Batgirl fighting Huntress and things like that. And now this issue has the whole conflict all in this one issue, and it has to wrap it up simply, and somehow Batgirl goes on Nightfall's boat and beats up a few people with the help of Black Canary and Huntress, and then kind of talks Nightfall down. Says, "You're defeated. It's over. I put all of the data on the web. Nowhere in the world is far enough for you to hide." And Nightfall breaks down and is crying, and it's practically gets a hug from Barbara Gordon, who says, "I'll help you. You need help." It just... And she gets a hug from... In fact, she does get a hug from Nightfall, sort of, where Nightfall whispers to her that her brother's still alive, which is supposed to make her feel better about that she didn't kill her brother. And then at the very end, she comes home and she says to her roommate, Alyssa, that she has to really tell her something. But what she tells her, I thought she was going to tell her she's Batgirl, but what she tells her is, "I need to start over. I'm moving, and I want you to come with me." And then they hug and cry. But it feels so unearned, all this hugging and crying, and I don't get why Nightfall just suddenly caved and why she was so convinced that she had lost, and it just didn't, it seemed to just come out of nowhere just because Gail Simone thought it would feel good. And with this end with Alyssa and saying, "I've got to move," and want to come with. But I don't, even though I've been reading, I don't know, at least 11 issues of this, I don't have a strong feeling about the nature of her relationship with Alyssa, her roommate, and I don't care very much about their hugging and crying. So it petered out, and it left some of the things that I was most interested in unresolved, like stuff with her boyfriend and stuff with her old college roommate who wants to suck her into yet another secret organization. I don't even understand if that secret organization knows that she's Batgirl, or just knows that she's Barbara Gordon, who has a good background, a good set of skills that will make her a good secret agent. And they want her to give up her entire life and work for their agency and not exist as a human being, just as an agent. I guess this will be addressed in the rebooted Batgirl that starts after the Future's End Batgirl, where she's just moving to another neighborhood of Gotham, a neighborhood that strangely resembles Portland, Oregon. Something fell in my basement elsewhere. It gave me kind of a startle. Hello? Yeah, no one there. Getting that spooky basement feel. So, yeah. Now I'm really distracted from my thoughts. So that was a bit of a disappointment. And we come at last to Batman Eternal, which was a very enjoyable issue. It had this artist, Emmanuel Simeone, script by Tim Seeley, and the Tim Seeley script seemed much better to me with Emmanuel Simeone. That might just be circumstance, but it might also be that there's a better synergy between this artist and that writer. it felt like a denser, more packed issue with each sort of beat of story, because every Batman Eternal seems to hit 3 or 4 beats per issue of different storylines, and every beat just seemed to be more dense and more rich to me. I do have mixed feelings about this artist because some of his imagery is very ugly, and sometimes it's not graceful, and but it does seem to do the job. I mean, here's a hideous face of Commissioner Gordon, and that kind of bothers me. But overall, he tells the story well, and captures an emotional intensity in a lot of the scenes that need the emotional intensity, such as Batgirl fighting Red Hood, who she is now seeing as if he is the Joker, because she's been hypnotized. And the Killer Croc and Batman and Lieutenant Bard in the sewers scenes has a greater intensity. Killer Croc is really a monster when drawn by Simeone. And the colors seem very intense. I would have thought that Simeone did his own coloring, because the whole thing looks like it's painted. But he must produce some very intense black and white or black and white and gray work that inspires the colorist Blonde, who's a very good colorist, but the color has a different look, a different effect with this artist. Another, so yeah, overall I enjoyed this issue quite a bit, and so it's that we've all noticed that up and down with Batman Eternal, and this is definitely an up for me. And Batman and Croc and Bard are going deeper into the sewers, where there are, according to Batman, these other dimensional aliens who are inhabiting bodies, and the closer to they are to the surface, because they're held in by magnetic forces, they have less power near the surface and more power as you go down deeper. And he name checks Batwing and Corrigan, who have been in the other story arc off in Arkham Asylum. So I'm hoping that it is as it seems, that this Batman and Killer Croc storyline is going to go intersect with the Batwing storyline in Arkham Asylum, and that they'll meet up under the earth somewhere near Arkham Asylum. That, to me, that would be really cool. There are some contradictory things here, because if it's Batman is completely wrong, if it's really Deacon Blackfire coming back from hell and having this enormous supernatural control. And it's funny to have this Batman who doesn't believe in the supernatural, because he clearly did believe in the supernatural earlier in recruiting the Spectre. But maybe it's that he believes in the supernatural, but he'll fall back on a scientific explanation until the supernatural is the only possibility. Or maybe he believes all supernatural events are paradimensional events, in fact. And certainly he has lots of experience going from dimension to dimension in other comics when he's not in Gotham. So yeah, the more as I leaf through it, I enjoy this Simeone art even more. It's so rich and dense, it's almost hard to take at first, and it does help to look it over several times and absorb it. But I think not only does he have this sort of intense way of filling every panel, but he does have very good storytelling chops. Up here with Batgirl is an example of how he also does kind of the awkward anatomy. It just doesn't feel quite right anatomy-wise. Her leg shouldn't look quite like that, I don't think. So on to little quibbles. Maybe this is just me being nuts or not knowing enough about Blackgate Prison. I guess this woman with the eye patch is the warden of the prison, and she seems to be wearing kind of a sexy outfit, not a professional woman's outfit, with kind of a little bit of a bare midriff. I think we see it again later. So she just struck an odd note for me, or maybe that's the only picture of her. And the other thing is, and it's silly of me, but I have a little trouble buying this Commissioner Gordon going in single-handedly with a fire extinguisher and he's gonna stop the entire prison riot. Then he's too much like Batman himself, a one-man army. He could be good at organizing the other cops and stuff and leading them. But and do they have fire extinguishers that you can just grab off the wall sitting around in a prison? That's being really picky, but yeah. So I did the fact that there's this big prison riot going on, and we got the lead up to it in last issue, shows me more that I was less happy with last issue, because it was not clear at all that what we were seeing was the lead up to a prison riot in last issue, and this prison riot came as kind of a surprise to me. But it certainly makes sense overall, and I'm glad they're doing it. As long as it's fictional, of course. But yeah, I kind of lack the background on Blackgate, on this bare midriff warden of Blackgate, and why she would come to Gordon at this point, and then let Gordon go off on his own. Blackgate's a bit vague in how it works, I guess, and people seem to come in and out of it with ease. But anyway, a good issue. I am looking forward to seeing how this prison riot will play out and what effect it will have on Gordon. I'm really looking forward to seeing Batman and Croc delve deeper into this supernatural kind of mystery. Another difference, the supernatural bodies being taken over here, they seem to be already dead bodies that spirits are then inhabiting. In the Arkham Asylum thread, it seems like they are taking over the bodies of live people. At least that was my impression. Yeah. So another interesting thing is if this stuff in Batman Eternal coincides with this Batman story. In the Batman story, at the end, he brings this meek serial killer to a seemingly functioning Arkham Asylum, and has them put him in the Joker's cell, which will lead to him getting a lot of publicity and a lot of attention, which is sort of the opposite of what he wants. So that's kind of interesting. If that is the case, is Arkham soon to be all healed up, or is this just a gaffe on their part? They just threw in the 2 pages because they, for whatever reason, feel everything has to be connected, and yet they're not really capable of connecting things up that well. You know, as I leaf through this more and more, I'm less disappointed in it, because I'm enjoying the artwork even more, and it seems more okay to me that it wasn't. I just had very high expectations for whatever reason, and some really cool one-and-done issue. So yeah. Okay, thanks for journeying with me through the heart of the Batman books again. And I'll be talking to you all very soon. Bye-bye.